Welcome. Thanks for having me here. For those of you who don't know me, I've been involved with the CDAP program, both as a funded investigator and as a program officer at NASA headquarters for some time. I was first at NASA. This is actually my second stint at NASA headquarters. I was first there about 8 years ago, where I was running the CDAP program and what was in the Origins program. I was away for a number of years, and I recently came back to NASA headquarters. I've been there for about 2 years now, where I'm running the NFDAP program and CDAP and the SSW program. And as a PI, I've been funded by all these programs. So these are both as members of the science team and as a PI from the community. So these are areas that are very near and dear to my heart, and I'm really happy to be running these programs. So I'm going to give you a quick update on the status of these outer planets research and analysis programs at headquarters. So first program is the CDAP, Cassini Data Analysis Program. So the Cassini mission is, of course, over, but we have somewhere close to 700 gigabytes of data on the ground from the Cassini mission that it sent down during its tour of the Saturn system. And so all that, we still have a lot of data, which is ripe for analysis. We're still getting a lot of great proposals being submitted, and we were very happy about that. The last completed selection year for CDAP was in the ROSES 2019 last year. Those selections went out in December. We had about a 30% selection rate, so 18 great new investigations funded, plus a couple more that were archiving data for proposals that were submitted through the PDART program, and that was to archive data that were not archived by the mission itself. The CDAP proposals for 2020 came in July. The step 2 proposals. Those are currently under review. We expect to have the selections out most likely in October. All of our RNA review panels, I should mention, are being held virtually, of course. Some of you have been involved with these. I know we are really grateful for the changes that all of you have made to your to help us review the proposals. Feedback from most of the community has actually been really positive. We have a pretty smooth system in place for doing these virtual reviews, and that has been great to have happen. Some of the programs have been delayed, but the vast majority of our programs have been moving ahead, regardless of the challenges of the COVID era. We hope that the CDAP program will continue in the future, depending on the number of proposals that come in. If there's still a lot of great proposals that come in, and we can really justify to NASA management that the program is scientifically productive in mining all this great data returned by the mission, then the program can certainly continue onward as justified by the number of meritorious proposals. Next slide. Here I have just a chart of the number of selections and submissions over time. You can see that the number of submissions kind of reached a peak during the middle of the mission there in 2012. That was also, for a couple of years, we were running the Cassini Participating Scientist program, and that allowed people to join the mission as a participating scientist, both from the US and from Europe. And so that was part of the spike in proposals around 2012 was due to that, and part of it was just all the great data really being returned during the prime of the mission. So the number of proposals now is certainly nowhere near that peak, but we leave it to the community to keep submitting good proposals and keep those numbers going into the future. Next slide. So the New Frontiers Data Analysis Program, NFDAP, we also made selections in last December. We had 11 new investigations, but from both Juno and New Horizons. We had about a 40% selection rate in that from the 27 proposals that were submitted. So the next slide. The NFDAP step 1 deadline happens to be tonight. You have a couple of hours to get your step 1 proposals in. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so, because there's a ton of great data. Here is everything you can do with NFDAP this year. You can look at Juno data. because there is the full nominal mission data through Paragraph 24, which means full mapping the magnetic field. There was a backlog of a lot of data that hadn't made into the PDS according to the nominal schedule, some data from GRM and some data from the Fluxgate magnetometer. That backlog has been entirely cleared by the team, so they've been doing a great job there. And so the entire data set, full mapping of the planet's magnetic field is available now. That's all in PDS. Any proposal to any NASA program, you need to use data which is in the PDS by 30 days prior to the Step 2 deadline, and that data qualifies now. So with New Horizons, data from the Arrokoth flyby, not the entire data set of that, but a lot of the data from out to a couple of days after the flyby is now in the PDS, or it will be by 30 days prior to the Step 2. So I encourage you to look at all those data. And of course, data from Pluto and Jupiter are still eligible for the New Horizons, for the NFDAP as well. Also, OREX, this is the first time that the NFDAP program is really open to, or expects to get proposals from OREX. It was open to OREX data before, but you know, just a cruise to an asteroid. There wasn't much valuable data yet, but there's a lot of valuable data now. Data from approach to Bennu and a lot of the orbital data at Bennu is in the PDS now and will be available. So there's your data sets. Tonight's the deadline, and please get your proposals in. Next slide. All right, so we also have the SSW program. I am not the lead for the SSW program, but I'm the deputy lead for it. We selected 300, I wish we selected 371 proposals. No, we received 371 proposals and we selected 42 of them. If you do the math there, that is an 11% selection rate. It is a terrible selection rate. It is really low. And it's about half of what it's been in the past. When this is the 6th year for SSW, and it's been 22% in all these years in the past, and it dropped precipitously this year. This means there was a ton of great science being submitted by everybody in the community that we were totally unable to fund. It's really frustrating for us, and it's of course so much more frustrating for all of you who submitted proposals, and many of you got great ratings on your proposals, excellent Salisbury goods, and there were a lot of those this year that we were unable to fund because we didn't have the available funding for it. The reason why we didn't have available funding, it's a couple of different factors. The proposals are getting bigger and bigger. The average proposal size has gone up almost 40% since the program was started. We have let's see, the average number of proposals has increased also, about 15% since 2015. In the past, our selection rate was unsustainably high. What this means is that each year with SSW and most of the other programs, you know, let's say, you know, with SSW, it's about a $25 million program. So we commit about a third of that to new selections, and then 2/3 of that is committed to paying for year 2 and year 3 selections which are proposals which you've already selected in the past. And if you select too many proposals one year, then it's kind of mortgaging the future. It's gonna eat into the selections that you can make in future years. And that is effectively what's happened with SSW, that we're spending future money at a higher rate than was sustainable. So we've had to make a correction to the selection rate this year. We hope that in the future we will have more money added into the program. The overall program budget has not changed substantially since 2014. It's about a $25 million program, more or less. That's not an exact number, so it's a challenging situation. We're aware of it. I encourage you to give feedback to Stephen Reinhardt, who is the head of the planetary RNA lead, for if you have thoughts on the overall budget that SSW gets. He is working very hard to right this ship, to make the program sustainable and increase the selection rates, because this is our biggest program. This is super important to the community. So we encourage you to give him feedback if you have thoughts on this.
Henry, you'll have to call for yeah, there you go. You have to ask for a call of advanced slides. Thank you.
I'm sorry, tell me that again.
Yes, you will have to ask us to advance your slides.
I'm sorry, thank you. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so you're on the demographics slide now. That is fine. Let's talk about demographics. I just wanted to mention demographics on the for the 2019 selections. For CDAP, we had about our selections were about 28% from women PIs in the field, and about 56% from early career, which in this case we're defining as being within 10 years of the PhD. For NFDAP, it was a little over 30% women PIs, 27% early career, and for SSW, it's about a third women and over half early career. To be clear, we don't select proposals based on people's gender or their early career status or anything like that, but we look at demographics afterwards just to see if there's any evidence of any bias here. We select the best proposals based on the science, but if we can, we want our selection to represent the community as a whole and the community of people who are submitting, and we're happy that you know, with the demographics of the proposals that we are selecting. We certainly try to be very aware of this. Keep in mind, you know, don't overanalyze this. All these numbers are small sample statistics. You know, even in the largest programs, just small sample statistics is going to change that a lot. So there are certainly some programs that are above the mean and some programs that are below the mean. Don't read too much into one program and comparing it to other programs. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, for 2021, there's going to be some changes in roses. Stephen Reinhardt mentioned at the discussion at the PAC, I think that was 2 weeks ago, that many of our programs are likely to be changing to a no due date submission model. And this is kind of motivated by flexibility, motivated by us being able to respond faster, and that the deadlines, rather than having a fixed deadline, we will solicit proposals. They will come in when they are ready by PIs, and we will review them once we receive them. So we are working on the implementation here. The idea is that we will be able to, rather than having to wait, you know, in the worst case, 364 days to submit a proposal, you'll be able to submit a proposal when it's ready. If you are affected by teaching, if you have delays with because of a family or because of COVID or whatever, we don't need to change the deadline for everybody. You can just submit your proposal when it is ready. These models have been tried at many other agencies, and I found it successful. The NSF, when I'm referring to NSF there, I'm not just referring to the NSF Astronomy Division. They had one program where they tried a no due date selection process, and they actually reversed that and went back to a deadline. But there are many other programs across NSF, across the whole agency, which indeed have changed successfully to no due deadline program. So for more details, you can download Stephen Reinhardt's presentation. It was done in the PAC. Those slides are online, and he has a bunch of slides on the motivations for this and the changes for this. We're still working out the implementation, so I can't really give you more details on what programs are going to be affected, when the deadlines are going to be, exactly how we're going to administer it. But I think it's a big change, but I think it's one that's going to be really positive for the community. We're also moving to implement a dual anonymous peer review program for all the DAP programs. That would include CDAP and NFDAP. And this is where review panels will see proposals and evaluate them, but during their initial evaluation of the proposals, they will not see the identity of the people who are submitting the proposal. So the identity is revealed at the end after the proposals have been essentially voted on and the strengths and weaknesses have been determined. Then the identity is revealed, and you can then judge the strength of the team as needed. But the emphasis here is to make sure that the review panel is focused on reviewing the science, not looking at the team itself. So we're working on the implementation here. Details are TBD. Certainly, this requires work on NASA's end, but also requires work on the end on the side of the PIs for, we will have a new set of guidelines for preparing proposals, such as to avoid things like self-identification. You can't put in a phrase like, in such and such paper, we showed that, So, so there's work on your end to make sure that your proposal is going to be judged on the science, not based on your team's qualifications. So I think that's all I have. Next slide. Why don't you just show the backup slides? Let me just put these up here so that people are aware that they're here. I have a couple of plots here. Actually, go to the next one, which is the SSW program trends. This just shows you quantitatively the trends that we've seen in SSW. The upper right-hand corner there is the mean total budget per proposal. And the lower right is the proposal selection rate, and you can see how one of these contributes to the other one. So the proposal selection rate has dropped off quite a lot as the mean size of the proposal has increased. There's been some increase on the upper left-hand corner. There's some increase in the number of proposals we have received. The largest number of proposals we received was in the first year of SSW. I think that's just because of the first year of any program. After the reorganization, got a lot of proposals, and then it's been sort of increasing, monotonically more or less since then. And then you can compare that to CDAP, which is the previous slide. Can I have the previous slide? Thank you. So with CDAP, you can see the number of proposals submitted reached that peak in 2012, and it's been on the slow decrease since then. The mean total budget per proposal has been increasing as well. So to be clear, this issue with the increase in the average request per proposal is not only an issue with SSW. We see this across a lot of our programs, and this is not a problem per se, because we want you to select to request the proper amount of money to fund your research. We don't want you to lowball your proposals just because you think that will work better for you. We want you to select the right budget for your proposals. But it does mean that the selection rate is going to go down because it's a fixed amount of money that we have in the RNA budget. And so you can see in the other slides there how that affects the total selections and the selection rate for CDAP. And that's all I have, so I'd be happy to take questions. Thanks.
All right, we do have about 10 minutes for questions, and of course, Henry's going to stick around and answer questions during the Q&A. So let's go to our Google Docs monitors. Do we have questions for Henry?
We have a lot of questions for Henry.
No doubt.
So, and a few of them are on similar topics. So I'll try and combine them as much as reasonable. I'll start with one from Amanda Hendricks. The low 11% selection rate is particularly bad considering that SSW is such a huge program and combines many of the older programs since the reorganization of RNA a few years ago. Is this year's selection rate an inspiration to undo the reorganization?
Well, the 11% selection rate, no one is going to agree with you that that is an extremely low selection rate, and that's it's awful. This doesn't have anything to do with SSW in particular, and it doesn't have anything to do with the reorganization in particular. It has to do with the amount of money that we've been requested and the amount of money that we have available. As far as yeah, so I think it's kind of what I can say about it. We are aware of the importance of this at very high levels in RNA and in planetary, and I know that I just as well as all of you hope that this is we can increase the selection rate in this program.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a similar question, but I'll follow up with one from Diana Blaney. Isn't the growth in the size of SSW proposals actually expected and encouraged from when the program started? I seem to recall that there was a concerted effort to ensconce people's research covered by multiple programs prior to integrate them into single larger proposals and thus cut down on the number of proposals going through the process. So the net result would obviously be larger programs. Yeah,
I know Kurt has mentioned it at many OPAG meetings before. Submit the request the budget that you need to do your science. That's what program officers tell people when they are proposing. We don't want you to underestimate your budget, underestimate your FTEs, and then come out with a science project which is halfway completed. We want you to request what you need, and maybe that is part of the reason for the increase in these. We haven't done the analysis to see if people's FTEs are increasing or institutional overheads are increasing, or exactly what the deeper cause of this increase in total budget requests is. But on the biggest level, this is not entirely unexpected, and it has a expected consequence that if we have bigger proposals, we're going to select fewer of them.
All right, thank you. I'll ask one on the diversity, and then I'll move on to ask a couple about the no due date that you talked about. So when you say that proposal size has increased since this is a question from Lene Quick, NASA Goddard. When you say that proposal size has increased since 2014, 2015, are you referring to the size of the proposal team or the proposal budget? And the second part of the question is, for selection demographics, given NASA's interest in EDI, can the number of minority scientists who propose be reported in the future as is done for gender?
Yeah, okay, so on the first one, the proposal team, I can't answer that, and it does not look like the size of the teams has increased. We did just a quick look at the number of co-authors and collaborators on a proposal, and that looks to be to zeroth order unchanged over the years. There may be some more subtlety in that answer, but my intuition is that it is the dollars per person, not the number of people, which is increasing. On the second one, as far as demographics, yeah, so what I've mentioned here are demographics in terms of early career, in terms of women. We internally, we do demographics on, for instance, minority PIs. We're not able to identify, this is not something which I believe is asked for in ROSES or when you submit a proposal of how people self-identify. And so we don't report those full statistics.
Okay, a related question from Serena Duniega at JPL. When looking at demographics, did you compare the percent selectees with the percent of applicants or estimated percentage in the community, for example? Else, how did you check for bias? And that's a similar question that's been raised a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, the answer is yes. We looked at the demographics of the selectees versus the demographics of the applicant pool as a whole. And I thought I put those on the slides, but maybe I, at least for a couple of them. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it's not on the slides. I apologize. But I'll just tell you briefly that in most of these cases, the number of both women and early career people did as well or better than the applicant pool to these programs as a whole. I think there's 6 statistics there. I think maybe, I forget, maybe in 5 cases they did better and in 1 case they did worse. It's something like that. But there was, what we would be concerned about is if there was a clear trend against, these groups, and that was certainly not what we saw. It was more the other way.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask a question on the no due date. The question from Cynthia Phillips at JPL, which I think characterizes the spirit of several questions on this topic. How will the no due date thing work in a proposal program like SSW that is so resource limited? Even today, many proposals that are rated EVG or even E don't get funded. With the no due date scenario, will all excellent proposals be funded from the start of the funding year until funds are exhausted? Will proposals with an EVG or VG be added at the end if funding is still available, or will they just be rejected?
Yeah, those are really important questions. Those are the ones which we are trying to work out ourselves as well. So there are many, many implementation details on how we do this. We want it to be fair to everybody. So we are spending a lot of effort to answer these questions and set up the programs well.
Okay, so important to add a similar question from Amanda Hendricks, PSI. Is the no due date thing going forward for sure, or are you awaiting input from the community? And I guess what would you like that input to look like? What form?
So input is certainly welcome. Right now, this is this has been announced to the PAC as something that we are looking at and would like to implement with details TBD. So if you want to give input, feel free to give input to either to Stephen Reinhardt or to, that's probably the most appropriate place, is to directly to Stephen Reinhardt, who's the lead for RNA in planetary. There's not a call for input, but I know that he and the rest of the program officers who will be working on this would certainly welcome your input.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up on the demographics too, please. Can you comment on demographics beyond gender, since gender isn't the only axis of diversity that matters? This is a question from Julie Rathbun, PSI.
Yeah,
I think Henry's slides imply demographics equals gender only, and SPIRES does collect demographic information, including gender, race, and more.
Yeah, we don't have, I think I addressed that a little bit earlier, we don't have demographic information on most PIs beyond gender and early career status. So we have some, we look at this internally to the best that we can, but we don't have data for most PIs that have self-identified.
I'll ask this question.
We don't have identity. We don't have identity for dogs who apply either.
Things are changing so fast, you never know. Is it a good idea? So a question from Morgan Cable on the no due date, which I think is resonating as well, is it a good idea to implement such big changes during a global pandemic? We've certainly, there are challenges doing this during COVID. We've made a lot of changes to the review process so far, and I think we've done, the feedback indicates we've done pretty well with those changes. We are aware of the huge importance of all the RNA programs that we do to the community, and we have all of your interests at heart in how we do this. So if we have concerns about not implementing this well, so that it's fair for everybody in the community, that is going to if we think we can't do this, then we won't. But this is something which we would like to do and are putting a lot of effort into.